And now, another episode of MMA Gossip with your boys.
Boom. We are live, everybody. MMA Gossip, episode number 80. And we haven't had a guest in a while, but today we have one. We got AJ Schullo, also known as AJMMABetting, all across the board. Instagram, Twitter, all over the place. He has a website as well. He's just like us, a little part of MMA Twitter, MMA Instagram, just trying to make a name for himself in the MMA world. Friend of the show, been listening for a little bit. Like he said, we support him, he supports us. So we wanted to get him on here and shoot the shit about some MMA. Last week's card, maybe this week's upcoming card. Might throw Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley in there because why not? That seems to be the news. And yeah, man. So what's going on?
Yeah, super thrilled to be on here with you guys. Been following you guys, as we were talking beforehand, for a few weeks. Love that you guys are showing up regularly. And yeah, great times. Excited to make my debut and talk about what went wrong for me last week, what I learned from. And, you know, it's crazy. You guys were one of few to really profit last event, which is, I mean, good to see in general, but especially on a card like last event where it seemed like literally 90% of people lost their bets. So I'm curious to hear what you guys did well last week as well, because you can still learn while win along the same way. I do believe that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we pretty much track all our bets just on the same website as you. It's usually me who puts the bets in, but Chris and Matt always, I always take their input in consideration. And whenever they think they have a spicy play, I roll with it and put that in there as well. But honestly, everything just rode on Giga Chikadze and the under, because I thought Giga really can't go that many rounds in my personal opinion. And I just thought if you're going to give Giga a stand-up fight, someone that's not going to shoot one takedown, why would I not put the bet on him at even money? Or he eventually became the dog, So I just thought that he should have been a bigger favorite. The value's there. And then, me and Chris took a stab on Sabatini. It worked out in our favor. And then I personally took a stab on Kevin Lee, which turned out to be not so great. But that was our only downfall. So, AJ, what'd you think?
Dude, yeah, I'm right there with you on Kevin Lee. I thought it was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. I mean, yeah, in hindsight, I could sit there and say, well, oh, why am I betting on a guy coming in on a layoff, like injuries, blah, blah, blah. I probably saw what you guys saw, the takedowns. I still don't think D-Rod has great takedown defense, but kudos to him. Very tough guy, high outputs. Definitely not going to be betting against him in the future. I was still impressed with him regardless. And the Giga play is really interesting because it literally seemed like, in addition to most people losing their bets last event, a good chunk of that was because everybody was riding Barboza. And I do consider Chikadze the sharp side because despite all this love for Barboza, the line was pick 'em basically all week. And that's always a head scratcher. So for me, I went 0 for 4. It was a total dud. I'll own it. No excuses. I lost on Kevin Lee. I lost on Brady Heastands. I also lost on I'm blanking in there, but there was like 2 other money line plays that I lost on the under 1.5 rounds on the Kennedy fights, and also Jamal Emmers, which was just like, wow, man, such a bad beat. But what I learned was, so I do the tape as you guys do. I take these notes, but what I've sort of done this past week has become more purposeful when I take my notes. So for instance, for this upcoming card, I literally have a template that I look to fill for each fighter. And then I just kind of fill it. Once I have that category filled, I move on to the next thing. Like for instance, Khalil Roundtree, I'm looking at here. What's his output like? Okay, I put 3.06 significant strikes landed per minute. And then I'll designate like whether that's low, medium, or high. That's on the lower end. And I pull those stats from UFCstats.com. And then I moved on to striking defense, how often he gets hit statistically, just eye test wise, gets hit a lot. Durability is another category, footwork, power, offensive wrestling, defensive wrestling, and cardio. Those elements, I think, are the most important thing when analyzing a style matchup. I feel like you could quantify those the best rather than gauging what a guy's going to look like at a different camp or after a weight cut or something like that. That's stuff that doesn't lie. Tape don't lie. So that's something that I put forth this week. Whereas in the past, I would kind of just, I would look at the fighter, I'd look at their last few fights. I would just put pros and cons and then just sort of fill out whatever I could find on tape. Whereas now I feel like I'm much more efficient. Before tape study and taking notes was stressful. But now that I'm, more meaningful with what I'm like, I actually have an objective when I go into film. And now when I have these boxes checked, I could literally move on to the next thing and I don't have to spend, hours researching one fighter. So I think that's a big thing that I need to be mindful of going forward. And even though I do this for a living, it's not as if I've mastered this thing. There's plenty more for me to learn. And this is definitely something that I'm looking forward to seeing the payoff going forward.
What do you think is more valuable to your research? All the statistics or film?
I think both. I think film a little bit more because statistics, they don't lie, but they could be a little bit deceiving in there. Like say if you got a small sample size on a guy, but then there was other times where it lines up perfectly. I mean, a guy like Darren Till averages 2.27 significant strikes per minute. And we could tell that by how he fights, just a very methodical range counter striker, basically. And I guess the sentiment that I think a lot of people carry around Till, interestingly enough, is like, he can't, it's very tough for him to win a decision, which again, his output isn't great, but at the same time, he's not getting hit a lot. He fought very competitively with Robert Whitaker, who's a guy that typically fights at a very high pace. That shows me that Till's upside is relatively high. So I'm not exactly kind of tying it into this week. I'm not sold on this narrative that Brunson could kind of outvolume Till on the feet. I think that Till could easily knock him out. I think that Brunson's style actually sets up rather nicely for Till to get a knockout. And there's not really a world I see where methodically Brunson kind of picks apart Till on the feet. So if you look at the stats, it's like, yeah, Brunson lines at a higher clip, but Till's the better striker. We could tell that from our eyes. And so that's why I would have to favor Till. So that's why I think that the film is a little bit more compelling in my opinion.
That was my biggest fear coming into this podcast with you, is you were going to come in here with some hot takes that Derek Brunson was going to win. Because I've been saying for like a month now that Darren Till, I think he's should be a bigger favorite, honestly. I just think Brunson's the stereotypical fighter that Darren Till is made to be. Like, he's a careless striker, shoots aggressively lazy takedowns that are really telegraphed. And what is Till if not an absolute range-controlled sniper? And I think that's going to give Brunson a lot of problems. I mean, I was saying to Mike last week, I'll never get the image out of my head of Brunson literally wailing overhands around Whitaker, around the octagon, just with basically no plan. And I know that's not a solid representation of him because he's been on like a 4-fight win streak now, 4-3, and he's looked a little bit better. But Darren Till is a guy that you could argue is always a fight away from a title shot. And I think this little Brunson run should come to an end. I don't know if we were getting to the fights yet, but you brought it up, so I was going with it.
No, I love that. I think that's a good take. Yeah, because I'm nervous for Brunson in fights where he can't get him to the ground. I mean, I obviously was nervous for him against Holland. I mean, I know he got that fight to the ground at will, but he got hurt there in that second round. I mean, man, durability is so important as when you're watching a fighter, because it's just like they could be fighting the perfect fight, but if they can't take damage, then it doesn't matter. Like, just like cardio, they could be fighting a perfect fight, but if that point hits where they gas, like Kevin Lee last week, then, he can't put his skills on the table. So I think that's super important. I think that's a good read. And I do think that Brunson will generally struggle here a bit more than, say, certainly more against Holland, that to get this fight to the ground. But that would be, if Brunson does win, how I would see him doing it. I just don't see him outstriking Till without just some random KO shot, which I doubt he lands because Till's very good defensively.
And you would also have to assume that a focal point of Darren Till's camp is he is 100% going to be shooting double legs in the first round. He's not going to be prepared for it.
He stuffed 11 of 13 of Whitaker's takedowns. And I know we think of Whitaker as a striker, but he's a really good wrestler. Yeah, like a Commonwealth wrestler and a really good submission grappler too. So that performance, even though it was a loss, gives me confidence in Till that he could stuff takedowns for the most part here against Brunson. So yeah, I'm right there with you, man.
Real quick, I want to say, Chris, I love your quote about what you say about having to bite down on the mouthpiece sometimes when the going gets tough and you just can't do that. You're never going to be a champion, and it's not a bet on kind of fighter, right, Chris? I love that quote that you say.
Yeah, I don't even know how I word it differently every time, but what he's saying is there's times where some fighters, like I use Corey Anderson as an example a lot, where he has seemingly all the talent, can win, almost any fight, has the wrestling ability, now has developed the striking ability, but then sometimes, when he has to bite down on the mouthpiece and just eat, everyone's got to eat some shots sometimes, no matter what, it's inevitable. You got to bite down on the mouthpiece. And I feel like there's fighters that just don't have that, intangible where they bite down on the mouthpiece and take those shots. So Corey Anderson's been put out in the third round in fights he was easily winning, or even knocked out in the first round in fights he should win. So how do you take that into consideration when you're making your bets? Is that like one of your factors, the intangible?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really important, man. And it kind of goes back to Kevin Lee. I factored it in the Kevin Lee bet, but I should have factored it into a greater degree. because obviously that was part of the reason why he lost. And, if I just look at it conceptually, I mean, look at all the champions in the UFC, every single one of them could take damage really well. Maybe they don't have the best chins in the division, but their durability has held up enough to get them to where they are. Because we've seen just tremendously talented fighters through the years. Gavin Tucker is a name that comes to mind. Mirsad Bektic, they are so damn skilled, but man, it's just like in their losses, it's just like they get tired or they just get caught with a big shot. And it's just like, man, it's so unfortunate because these guys are so damn talented. They could reach new heights, but then they just lose to a guy like Dan Ige or Darren Elkin. So it is very, very important. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So AJ, I want to bring something up that I've been doing for like the past 3 months. It's been working out a lot for me because I've been so busy over the summer. I haven't been able to watch as much tape as I want. So I've been more so betting the line more so than the fighter, right? So I think, I run a simulation in my head. These fighters fight 100 times. How many times they win out of 100, right? So if I think, for example, I thought Giga Chikadze wins probably, in my opinion, 70 times out of 100, which why I thought, hey, give me minus 110. Boom, there's my money. I don't really care what happens because I thought I got the value, right? So what do you think about this kind of process where it's like, there are a lot of bettors out there that mostly play the line and they say, okay, I win 55 to 60% of the time. That's a good betting strategy. So I see yours is way more in depth. Like you're looking at 100 different factors, more so than me. That's just like, I haven't had the time. So I'm kind of playing the line. It's been working out in my favor, but obviously the ball bounces in both courts. Variation, things vary from event to event. Sometimes a guy gets choked out, he's winning the whole fight, or the guy's losing the whole fight and then gets knocked out at the end. Obviously, there's going to be, things are going to happen. But what do you think about that strategy of mostly playing the line, right? Because if it changed, let's say Giga Chikadze was like a minus 250, at that point, I feel like the play is Barbosa. You know what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I hear you 100%. And I have the same exact end goal. Even though I maybe look at some more stuff, just on tape and stuff like that, I'm fishing for more information. We still do have the same objective. We're still trying to make a line where we think the fight should be. And then we're going to make a bet based on where the value lies. And I think that's a very good read because this is a game of probabilities, not absolutes. We've just seen it with an old example that comes to mind is like Matt Serra versus GSP, right? Matt Serra caught him the first time, he knocked him out. But we saw when they rematched who the fighter that wins much more often than not. If Serra does not land the big shot, GSP is just more skilled. He beats him. So that's why I don't even really get offended when people tweet at me like this didn't age well or nice bet there, bozo, or whatever they want to say at me, because it's just like, dude, it doesn't even offend me because you get to see the fight play out one time. You did all this homework and you just made a decision that you're at the end of the day okay with. And I got to something that I practice as a bettor is, and even I do this just with other stuff in life, is I don't risk stuff unless if I'm okay with losing it. I don't want to lose it, obviously, but if that's the worst case scenario, I'm okay with it. I'm at peace with it. So whenever I wager any sort of money, it's just okay, I'm just going to risk my exposure here, no more than 5% of my betting bankroll, and whatever happens. You just got to see how it plays out. We've even got another example coming up here with Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang. Zhang was over 2-1 favorite against Rose the first time. Rose caught her with the head kick in that first round after being outstruck on distance strikes against Zhang. So now we have a more competitive line, more 50-50. Now you could argue that there's some value on Zhang just based on the amount of hype that she had going into the first matchup. But, this first round knockout result might make people think maybe Rose was just being underrated. She could knock her out. To me, I think people overrate the knockout threat of fighters in general. And I brought it up. An example recently was Punahele Soriano versus Brendan Allen. Everybody thought Soriano was going to knock out Allen. Allen was coming off the knockout to Strickland. Soriano hits really hard. That's all obvious stuff. But my hesitation with betting Soriano was because I just wasn't confident in him if he didn't knock out Allen. And as we saw in that fight, he slowed down, he got tired, and that wasn't a huge shock because he got tired in his Contender Series fight, right? So I always want to bet fighters where they have more paths to victory. If they get a knockout, that's great, but I don't want to bet a fighter whose main way to win and really only way to win is by knockout. I learned that lesson when I bet Mike Perry against Tim Means. I thought Means' durability was on a big decline. Perry has some power in his hands, and then, but I acknowledge even in my breakdown that Perry could easily lose the decision here if he doesn't knock out Means, and that's exactly what happened. It was fairly handily too. So I would like to, when I bet fighters, kind of like your bet on Chikadze, I want the more avenues that they could get the thing done, the better off I'll be, and I feel better about it at the end of the day.
So I got to ask you, and not to start evaluating another fight that's not even happening yet. But after all that about knockout, what would you say about a fight like Ngannou and Yan? Just out of pure curiosity.
Gone.
That's what I think. Gone.
Gone.
What would you think about that fight? Because I feel like that could be an exception to the rule, but at the same time, it's like, where do you draw the line?
Ngannou's always the exception to the rule.
That's what I'm saying, right? So looking at that, and that's a line that's going to be dead heat up until the fight starts.
Yeah, I think you guys make a good point, because there are definitely exceptions to the rules and the principles that we play in this game. And Ngannou is that guy. Like, he could literally knock out anybody with a big shot. Doesn't matter how good your defense is, your durability is generally. Rozenstruck's shown actually a great chin at heavyweight, and he was able to knock him out with a big shot. And he could theoretically knock out Gane. So a fight like that, to me, is a stay away, because I have so much respect for Ngannou's athleticism, his power, his speed, his improvements as a fighter. But I think that the better round winner is Gane. Like, he just throws it higher volume. I trust his cardio more in 5 rounds. I think he fights better at range, but he got by against Lewis. He survived the power threat there, but that doesn't guarantee, and against Rozenstruck too, but that doesn't guarantee that he does the same against Ngannou. So it gives me some confidence in Gane that he could maybe beat Ngannou, whereas guys like Stipe didn't really stand a chance that second time. But yeah, I generally, and as a guy that's bet against Ngannou twice, I've learned my lesson there. I'm not going to do it again, because he just needs one opening, and then that's it. That's all she wrote.
Curiosity. Did you fade him?
I faded him against Stipe the second time, and then I faded him against Rozenstruck.
As long as you didn't say Overeem for some reason.
No, I faded him against Rozenstruck too, because I thought the line was juicy, but damn, that ended quick.
Is there a line too big? Like, where's your cutoff?
To me, I don't bet a fighter that's north of 5-1. The biggest favorite I bet was Montel Jackson when he fought Jesse Strader. Outside of a fluke, I just didn't see him losing, and people were weren't exactly thrilled that I was doing it. They're like, how could you bet such a big line? And I'm like, dude, just because the line is 4-1 or more doesn't mean that there's not value on it. Like, I'm okay laying that number if I think that there's value on it, but there's this misconception that if you're betting a big favorite that you shouldn't do it because the ROI isn't as good. If I bet a 4-1 favorite, I lay 4 units on that. That's a 25% ROI. That's a solid day at the office. So but people treat betting as if like, oh, it's just like about getting lucky and there's not that much skill involved. And that's where I like to kind of get my edge. If you just do your homework, like we've been, that's where you could separate yourself. And so, I don't think there's necessarily a line where I draw the line in the stand where I'm like, this is too high. But as far as like betting it goes, anywhere north of 5-1. But an angle that I like to play with some big favorites is if they're in a match where I think that they just dominate the opposition, I think they finish. I looked for the under 2.5 rounds, maybe even under 1.5 rounds, because that line is a lot more enticing. Kat Zingano comes to mind when she fought that woman in Bellator recently. She was like a 10-1 or minus 1,000 favorite, but then the under 2.5 rounds was like minus 150 or something. I just took a shot on the under, and then she went out there and she did the thing in the first round. So I don't feel obligated to parlay. I just look at other angles, and the under props are interesting to me at a better price.
What about like guy with big odds? Would you ever look at ways to finish potentially? Like if a guy like 20 win, 15 of them are by submission, but his line's north of 5-1. Do you ever play those by finish type bets, or not really, just money line under over?
Yeah, like I think that's another interesting angle you could take. If you're really confident that the big favorite goes out there and finishes and his finish prop is reasonable, I think you could take that angle. If I'm not sure whether or not they finish or don't, I would just rather lay the money line, or I'm not the biggest parlay guy, but I suppose that'd be something to consider. But yeah, if there's definitely a lot of evidence to say like, yeah, they go out there and they finish the thing, I'd rather take that prop than their money line for sure.
Gotcha. I was actually having this discussion with Chris last week. Chris, remember when I called you? Granted, he lost. But I was basically explaining like, yeah, I'm making like 10-25% back, but it's still a solid return on interest. It's not, I'm not like doubling, tripling my money. We were talking about Murdoch, right?
Yeah. And I said, don't bet on him.
Yeah. Who ended up losing regardless. So thank fucking God I didn't do that. But very similar conversation we just had about this last week.
Yeah. If I would have bet a guy like, Murdoch at that price and that line, it would be his ITD. Yeah, that would be another angle you could look. Because at the end of the day, I think people kind of let their own egos get in the way when they bet. They're like, oh, I have to get the winner in there. Like I have to parlay him up and or bet on him straight. When like there's other angles that you could play the fight. I remember I bet at plus money even Sajara Eubanks in the Elise Reed fight, like under 2.5 rounds. That was just a ridiculous line. And the consensus was that Sarge was the better grappler and she was going to go out there and do the thing. But the line was where it was based on history. Sajara is not historically a finisher in the UFC, but that was an opportunity for her to exploit. And that's definitely an edge that you could get from looking on tape.
Yeah, we love it. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, Mike. How often do you do parlays? I was just going to ask you that because you just brought it up. Do you usually stick with straight bets or do you parlay a lot?
I very, very rarely do them. I haven't had that much success. The thing, it's always intriguing. I know people that are really good at parlays, and I put out an article somewhat recently about them. It got a ton of hate, but like I understand that people have success. It's just not my style because just conceptually, I need the legs to cash to see my money. Whereas like on a money line play, it's just like one sweat and then I get it back. So again, if it's your thing, if you do well at it, good on you. It's just not necessarily for me. But even kind of tying into a card like this, hypothetically speaking, a guy like Jack Short fits like the prototype of a good parlay leg. Like he's a very solid favorite. I'm sure you guys are very sold on his chances to win. I just personally think he's much better than Ludovic everywhere the fight goes. And you couple that, he's more UFC tested, he's more prepared. And I think he goes out there and rolls. And my confliction is whether or not he could finish Ludovic. Ludovic seems really tough, but he did get his back taken on the Ultimate Fighter, so I suppose it's possible that Short chokes him out. So that's one where I'm a little bit more sure. So if I were to have some action on Short, I'd rather take his money line in a parlay.
Gotcha.
What if you get a situation where you have two massive favorites on a card, and even though it's a 2-fight parlay, it just, if you like them that much, it just makes more sense to put them together and get. You probably are not getting like a plus money multiplier, but you're at least lowering those odds a little bit.
Yeah.
Rather than having all this exposure of two big favorites on your card.
Yeah, that's a fair way to play it. I know people that like parlay underdogs. I mean, sometimes it works out for them, but I'm just like, I don't really feel the need to parlay an underdog because if it hits, you're getting more than 100% of your ROI. Yeah. You have to only sweat one thing. So like, if I am parlaying, it's usually massive favorites because their chances of win are so high, and then you get a better number, like you said. So it's not exactly my go-to, but it is something that I've done in the past.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So as you can see, we're kind of just we kind of just casually shoot the shit about MMA. Where Mike actually he does our bets and he tracks his bets and he does pretty well for himself, especially. Matt is our degenerate gambler. He kind of just tosses money on whoever the favorite is. But Mike actually Mike actually does his research. Anyway, dude, what got you into MMA betting in general? Were you always an MMA fan first, and you coupled it with the betting, or how'd you go about it?
It's a funny story, especially on this podcast, because you guys are from Jersey, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like I was the biggest DraftKings dork for years, and that was all I played. I still do play DraftKings, but through my playing of DraftKings, specifically in the MMA format, I qualified, or it was actually through NBA, but I have a lot of success through NBA, NFL, and MMA. I qualified to a live final for the DraftKings Sports Betting National Championship in Hoboken, New Jersey. It was the stay was in Hoboken. The actual event was in Jersey City. So it was kind of in that area. And like, it was so cool because it was a comp trip, like super nice. And it was their first live event for sports betting. It was when DraftKings literally just introduced it back in January 2019. And I flew out there with a buddy, and it was so awesome. And it wasn't just like, oh, it's just some comp trip. And I mean, I met some cool people out there. It was like a really good vibe and everything. But just the amount of success that I had with really not a whole lot of experience, I just sort of like researched some stats and I found some angles when I was there. Like I remember Los Angeles Clippers were like big underdogs to some team that they were playing. It was like Blake Griffin's revenge game back when he was in his prime. And, the line was set that Griffin wasn't playing, but word dropped that he was a few hours prior. So I loaded up on like Clippers at like plus 300. And then I loaded up on some other spots and I did quite well. But then I don't really do the other sports, but MMA was something that I just felt was always an edge because it's less stats driven than them other sports. Like you could get a big edge long term if you just do your homework on the film, which not a lot of people love to look at. And I get it. It takes some time, but I started betting back in 2019 because I got some confidence with how I did in Jersey. And then from there, just some wins started piling up and had some success. But then my ego got a check with like taking some big losses in there. And then it encouraged me to work a little harder. And then, ever since then, since 2019, I've just kind of been refining my process. Trying to make it as many long-term winning years as I can. It's not easy, but I do think it's doable. And, from people on the outside looking in, and I used to be one of them people, you'd be like, how could you make money long-term betting? You're losing, you're playing against the house. It's not true. It's just, you'll lose if you sort of echo the same sentiment as the majority of people where they just kind of want pure action on kind of anything. Whereas if you're just a little bit more disciplined, it's all good. I mean, everybody's a little different. If you just come in with a more disciplined approach and you do your homework, you will succeed just like anything else in life. So it's just a huge misconception. I think that the masses like to echo, but if you're actually been there and done that, like we have, it's a totally different ballgame and you can get ahead. So it's a cool thing.
How do you account for absolutely brutal judging?
See,
because I'm sure you've gotten burned before.
I have. Yeah. This past weekend wasn't the first time I got burned betting Jamal Emmers. I bet him against Giga Chikadze, a fight that a lot of people thought he won. But I usually don't bet fighters unless if I feel like they're clearly going to win the fight. I don't want to bet them thinking that they could just kind of make the fight close. I want them to like edge it out, like in a big way. And typically I love to bet a lot of guys that grapple because if they look to get that fight to the ground and they're getting that top control time, that's just a good look in the eyes of the judges. I mean, obviously we saw in Contender Series yesterday with like that second or third fight, the one guy took him down a bunch. It was debatable. I mean, like whether or not he won or lost, but he still like looked good. It was a good strategy. And so, that I usually like to back guys like that. I'm not that big on betting guys in purely striker versus striker matchup, unless if I think there's a huge edge with like volume and cardio or technique or something like that, or defense. But I typically like to bet guys where I'm like, okay, this guy isn't just going to make it close. He could actually dominate this fight. And so I shouldn't have to sweat, with the judges.
It's awesome. That makes sense. How many fights would you say you bet on average per card? Unless it completely varies.
Yeah, anywhere from 1 to 4. I've become a lot more, strict. I don't want to. I mean, some cards I have a bunch of sprinkled action, but I feel like the more selective I am, the better my bets are in the long run.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's what I'm doing lately either. So, AJ, we don't want to take too much of your time. And I was just wondering if you got any hot takes or any value spots you like on the upcoming UFC 36 card. I know you have premium picks, but if you want to give us a little preview, something you want to, sprinkle with us, we appreciate it for the fans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I pull up best fight odds right now, I do think that there's quite a few spots on this card where the metrics have become more wise to the stats. I used to be totally ignorant to stats. Where like the metrics favor one fighter to do well. I talked a bit about it in my free prize picks article on the newsletter on my website, but there's definitely some angles that we could attack here with just like fighters exceeding their expectations in terms of significant strikes. For instance, Alex Morono throws a lot more offense per minute than a guy like David Zawada does. I think the fight could very easily be contested on the feet. And in that type of fight, I know Morono's got a little bit of juice on him, but I feel like his volume, his boxing should be able to edge him out there. And a fight like Roundtree and Bukauskas is really high variance. And so I could see Roundtree just going out here and getting the knockout, but it's an interesting fight because if he doesn't knock out Bukauskas, I feel like Bukauskas can beat him because he has better cardio, a higher pace. I think he moves better. So that's not really a fight I would touch with the 10-foot pole, but somebody might be looking at this line going like, why is Bukauskas a favorite? And we saw Roundtree his last fight against Pacino. If he doesn't knock the dude out, he tends to struggle to win the round. So I think that line makes a ton of sense. In a spot that I've been really considering all week, I might do something by the time the fight approaches here, but Jiyeon Kim and Molly McCann, I'm really intrigued with the McCann side because there's footage like Kim, her takedown defense is 42%. And on film, she was held down by Grasso, held down by Shevchenko, held down by Kasem. And McCann ain't the best wrestler, but she could go for them takedowns. Like we said, she could ride out around with some top control. I think she's better on the feet despite the 10-inch reach advantage. So that's a spot where I think we could see that fight play out. And then McCann just looks like value, to be honest. Again, the reach is something difficult to overcome, but Kim isn't really that powerful or fast. So I think McCann can work her way on the inside. And then one last fight I'd like to touch on is Jourdain and Arosa. I feel like Arosa could win this fight, man, if he doesn't get knocked out. But the problem is I feel like there's a good chance he does get knocked out by Jourdain because Arosa's just, he's been hurt so many times. Jourdain hits fairly hard. Arosa just encourages a pocket brawl. And that's a fight that I don't really want to lay juice on a guy like Jourdain who's so inconsistent and lost. He had that draw with Kulabau in there, so he's underperformed at times. So there's some spots that I think are very volatile on this card, but there are also some intriguing value spots where we could see the fight play out and be like, oh yeah, this was so easy for like say Morono or McCann. They just fight at a much higher tempo and they could have success everywhere. But this isn't my favorite card from a betting perspective, but there are some some interesting angles.
Good shit.
Dude, that's awesome. I want to ask you one thing from before we let you go. When you after 2019, when you were DraftKings up here in Jersey, you just dove in full time. You're like, this is it. This is what I want to do.
I was closing out. I used to work in finance, and that used to be my passion. It just seems like so long ago. And then like as I started to bet more and more, it just started to like pull me away from my other career, and I just started getting less and less motivated by it. So by the time 2020 happened, I just turned in my notice, and then I went full time at the beginning of that year, and that's when everything started to go south. But it's been a journey. It took me a while to get some momentum, but if you keep at it, you'll get what you want eventually, and then you could achieve anything you want. So it's been tough. It's probably going to be difficult at times going forward, but it's something that I love to do, and I see myself doing it for the foreseeable future.
Awesome, dude. I love to hear that. Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was a big leap of faith. If I had one wish, I would wish that everybody in the world would be able to do what they love, because man, I just don't want to be stuck in an office all day. I don't know about you guys. It's just not exactly exciting.
You're talking. I quit my job. They told me to go back to the office, and I like tried to play it up and be like, I can't, this, that, the other thing, make a bunch of bullshit. Guy worked in finance too. And then when he Bush came to shove, I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to quit now. Just figure it out. I landed a job regardless. It's another story, but all of us can definitely relate to just wanting to do your passion for a living in whatever capacity you could possibly do that. So props, man. And seriously, it took some balls to do something like that.
Yeah, thanks. And the hardest part about it all is just believing that you could do it, man. It sounds so cliche, but like if you just actually set out the framework, you make your goals, only matter of time. I believe it. So anybody could get there. It don't seem impossible once you believe it.
Hell yeah, go Darren Till.
Yeah, go Darren Till. Go Liverpool.
Well, AJ, bro, thank you seriously, man, for doing this. We'd love to have you on again. We can make this thing come on every once so often, shoot the shit, talk about it, because we love your opinions, and I definitely want to hear more about it. Yeah,
likewise. I'd love to jump on anytime. My podcast, I want to give out more free content. So looking to have guests on as well in the future. And cheers, guys. Good luck on all your bets.
Dude, the floor is yours, by the way. If you want to shout out the website, Instagram, whatever you want, dude, let people know. Where can they find you?
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, AJMMA Betting, website, www.ajmmabetting.com. Really happy that Prize Picks is now sponsoring the website. Cool to hear. You get a sign-up bonus with them. My website isn't sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight, but you still get a promo code and a sign-up bonus if you click one of the banners on my website. So happy to help out there. Newsletter, that's all there, free content. I'm not just a guy that operates behind a paywall. I want to give you guys some free stuff. So you could find that on my website as well. And cheers, guys.
Awesome, cheers. Dude. Thank you so much, AJ.
Peace, bro.
Peace out.
Well, AJ. See you soon. All right, there we have it.
AJ Schullo. That was cool, man. He's a really good guy. I appreciate I know you guys feel the same way. I appreciate him hopping on. AJ actually reached out to us, and he's one of those guys who we've been liking and retweeting his stuff. I've been checking him out on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and same with us, staying with him rather. So it was actually good to have him on, see him face to face, and I would definitely like to do that again going forward.
Yeah, man. He's got 158 units profit since 2019. So for anybody listening at home, unit could be whatever you want. So if it's $100, he's profited $15,800 since he started, and it's tracked, and it's nothing that he can fake. So he's legit.
We should have him come on with Guru and debate the idea of the parlay.
That's what I was thinking. But now AJ's definitely, he's an MMA bettor. You can tell he does his research. He knows what the hell he's talking about. I'd love to honestly, like, we could have him on an episode where we just bullshit about the world of fighting in general, because he's definitely super knowledgeable about it.
Oh yeah. So. Dude, he's the most positive person I know in the world.
Yeah, he's awesome, dude.
He really is.
He was getting me going when he was talking at the end. That was fucking awesome. But so what's up? You want to talk about the fights a little bit this week? Get into like one or two big ones, or you want to just talk about the news in MMA? Though I shouldn't even say MMA, the world of boxing.
Yeah, I just think that, I don't know. It's all that we've been hearing over the past, couple days has been the Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul fight. And dude, as crazy as it sounds, like I'm interested in listening to it and hearing like the fallout out of everything. And it's just like, I know we were all pissed at Woodley for not throwing punches at all throughout the whole fight. He threw like 7. But I mean, I think it's pretty set in stone that Jake Paul actually isn't good at boxing, and Tyron Woodley just doesn't throw punches. And it really is just like a shit show of who wants to make money against him. But I have to give him credit, man, because he doesn't have to do this. You know what I'm saying? He has so much money, but he's still going out there and fighting. Maybe not the best competition, but he did fight Tyron Woodley, who is a UFC champion. Granted, it's a different sport. But I just what are you guys' thoughts 3 days removed from the Jake Paul Woodley fight? Matt, go first.
I was talking to Chris about it yesterday, and I still don't like Jake Paul, but I did find a newfound respect for him in a way, because like for the first time in his career, and this was my biggest critique, is I've never seen him against adversity. Like all of us in this chat, in this podcast, would knock out Nate Robinson, like unconscious, middle of the road, dead. Ben Askren, probably not. I think all of us would go at least 8 rounds with Ben Askren. This is me just spitballing. But what I'm getting at is, for the first time, he got cracked a couple times, and he fought through it. He finished the fight. He ran a fuck ton. He didn't do much besides throw 1s and 2s, but he didn't go out there and hold like a chair. He was very modest and appreciative of Woodley after, and then Woodley did what Woodley always does, and poor me, I won, wow, and just made his bitch ass performance look even more bitch ass-esque.
Chris,
thank you for that great insight, Matt. I appreciate it. Nah, dude, I'm gonna be honest. I overestimated Jake Paul's ability going into that fight. He got tired, and that was not a very high paced fight. It was relatively a slow paced fight. Woodley did, the narrative, and I said it too. Oh, Woodley throws no punches. He threw, I don't know what it was, maybe 100 punches, let's say, right? I remember at one point, Mel Arnell saying he's at 90 punches or some shit. It's in boxing, you need to throw in combinations, and Woodley throwing one jab at a time, backing up, one huge overhand right, not following it up at all. Even when he had Jake Paul hurt, didn't follow it up at all. The name of the game in boxing is, number one, a jab, and Woodley had a better jab than I expected, but still not a very good jab, and no combination. So you cannot win a boxing match with no jab and no combinations. That's literally the name of the game. That's what all the greats have. Floyd Mayweather, who is known for never throwing many punches, doesn't throw a lot of volume, has one of the best jabs of all time, and is a great combination puncher. It's all it takes. It's combinations. And I think that if Woodley goes back to the drawing board and I'm not rallying for a second fight by any means, but if they did fight again, I think if Woodley threw combinations, it would be a very easy fight to win. I think that Jake Paul was joking around saying he's retiring, and I think Jake Paul realized he's not going to go very far with this thing. Like, Tyron Woodley is not a good boxer, and Jake Paul, yes, he won the fight just strictly on output, basically, because I think Tyron Woodley won the fight, Jake Paul won the boxing match, and it was pretty fucking lackluster. So I would definitely fade Jake Paul very seriously going forward.
Yeah, I didn't think about it from that perspective. I like that, Chris, because you're right. Mayweather doesn't throw that much, but he's got those 2 other things down packed better than anybody. And that's why he's the greatest of all time, right? 50-0. So, yeah, I guess I can't knock Woodley for not throwing as much, but yeah, got to throw more jabs, got to throw more combinations. And for those of you that think the fight was rigged, oh my God, shut up. Oh my God, go do something else. But yo, real quick, Chris, I don't know if you answered this, but this is totally off topic. But I was listening to Ariel Hawani's show and how he talked about how him and Luke Thomas like squashed some beef. Like I didn't know they had beef. Do you know what's this about?
Yes and no. So neither one of them actually came out publicly and said, hey, this is the reason why we have beef. But if you listen to Ariel, he never ever gave props to Luke. He never thanked Luke when he was exiting MMA fighting the first time. Just anytime he said thank you to people or acknowledged his career, Luke Thomas was never mentioned. And, they obviously had a long history together. And on Luke Thomas's show, which I used to listen to all the time before it became like a friggin' political podcast, he threw shade at Ariel all the time. Someone one time on his, and then it became obvious that they had an ongoing beef. And I remember one time Luke Thomas fielding questions and someone said, if you could punch Ariel Hawani in the face and no one would ever find out, including Ariel, would you do it? And he was like, like laughing and debated it for like 10 seconds. He was like, no, I'm the bigger person, blah, blah, blah. Basically what people have come to conclusion saying, and it's Luke Thomas has kind of said it without saying it, is that Ariel, a lot of things were promised to him at MMA fighting, and then Ariel always got precedent, and Ariel never gave back to him. Like he felt like Ariel owed him something, I guess, in a way. All the opportunities that Ariel got were like Luke never got. They put all their stones into Ariel's basket. You know what I mean? Or eggs, rather, whatever the fuck the saying is. Put all his eggs in one basket. And Luke just never felt that he got his due. So then he moved on, did his freelance work, got the job at Showtime. And now Luke says he's happier than ever. Ariel's back doing his thing. He seems to be happier than ever. And I guess I didn't even know they squashed it. So you just told me that. But yeah, I knew it's been a few years now. It's been like at least 4 years of beef that they've had going on.
Damn, I feel so out of the loop. No, it wasn't like they squashed the beef. It was more so just Ariel answering questions at the end of his show. And they brought up like Luke Thomas, and he's just like, he was very, as he always is, he's very vague in his answer and doesn't really, dive into the details of what happened. So, I mean, that's Ariel.
What did he say?
That's why he's the best. He was just kind of talking about like, yeah, I mean, like there was some stuff going on between me and Luke in the past, but kind of like how he spoke about Ali Abdelaziz, where we had bad blood, but I would shake his hand right now if he was in front of me. That's how Ariel is. He's like, we're in different spaces right now. I wish him the best happiness. I wish everybody in the world can go be happy. Ariel's like very positive now that he's returned back to MMA fighting. That's pretty much. It was like not even 30 seconds. I just brought it up because I didn't know much about it. But as Chrissy knows everything about everybody's lives, so I love it. That's why I always ask you.
Yeah, dude. I know dude, I like that almost just as much as the sport itself. Like the behind the scenes is awesome, dude. Just storylines, everybody's storyline is what I like. Like I know fighters, like kids' names and wives' names and where they live and just weird, unnecessary thing. Like I know like my favorite fighters' hobbies and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just weird. I don't know. But anyways, we got Darren Till, Derek Brunson this weekend. I don't know, man. After hearing AJ, I definitely am more confident in Darren Till, but I'm not very confident in Darren Till, to be honest with you, ever, really. To be honest with you.
I just think I don't know, man. I just think that he's so much better than Brunson. And what really made me realize that his striking is so elite is because when he fought Robert Whittaker, man, that was razor close, and we saw how Robert Whittaker's striking is pretty phenomenal. The way he went out there and just dismantled Gastelum like that, I wasn't expecting that. So like you see the levels, and that Till's right there at the top. And Brunson has an overhand right that hits really hard and some wrestling that I'm not quite sure that he can take him down. And so I do have a play on Darren Till, just minus 160 one time over because I'm not that confident in him. But I got a couple other plays. I actually played David Zawada against Alex Morono because it was plus 145, but the line dropped. Now it's plus 115. So I got the line moving in my favor. I agree with Molly McCann. I think that she's going to win. I actually bet Modestas Bukauskas as well. And that's pretty much it. I got a couple unders in the Vendramini. Patty Pimblett making his debut. Dude, I don't think he's that great. I'm excited for him, but I don't think he's going to fare well. He's just got that hype, man, that you haven't seen this kind of hype in a while someone coming into UFC. So I'm super excited for him. I think he can win this because obviously the UFC is going to put him in a match that's winnable for his debut. But I mean, Luigi's not that bad. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think, but just played the under there. But Any other spots on the card you guys think that are worth talking about? I mean,
I had a couple, maybe two. I'm sorry. I'm actually just started work 50 minutes ago, so I've been busy with that and trying to balance. But I actually like Jourdain this weekend, Mike's favorite fighter, and I'm debating my lock now. I was definitely going to do Till. I might be doing Aspinall.
Yeah, I think he wins too.
Yeah,
dude, I don't know. Spivak, that line is, well, it's of course Matt's betting minus 300, but I don't know.
Minus 300.
What is he?
260.
No, 245, 250, all right. It's between 245 and 260. It's not terrible.
It's not minus 300. Oh, my bad, dude. But dude, I kind of like Spivak at that line. I saw him as high as plus 220, so maybe the Aspinall line dropped a little bit, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I think Aspinall's gonna. I think Aspinall's gonna win, but Spivak is. He's like fucking, what's his name? What the fuck's his name?
The boa constrictor?
No, he's like, what's his name? Greg Hardy. Matt's favorite heavy.
Oh, Tybura.
I just said
Tybura. He just wins fights he shouldn't, and I feel like that's one of them. But anyway, boys, I think that's episode 80 in the books.
Let's get it. That was awesome. So pumped for AJ coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you, AJ. Thank you again for doing this. We'd love to have you again. Like we said, AJ MMA Betting, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. He's got his website as well. At MMA Gossip for us across the board. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, comment, subscribe on AJ stuff as well. Like we said, we'll have him back. And that's it.
All right. That's it. See y'all next week, everyone.